This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. It is Monday, March 6th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a stark warning about the coronavirus impact on America from the Surgeon General, comparing the week ahead to Pearl Harbor and 9/11. But President Donald Trump offering some hope for the days afterward. With a growing number of people now wearing masks, what do you do if you don't have one? Our medical reporter, Lori Johnson, is here to show us how to make one and if we still need social distancing and if we're wearing masks. We'll talk about that. Churches across the country closed down for Holy Week and Easter because of government lockdowns. Is there a threat to religious freedom in America? We'll explore that question. And while the coronavirus closures are hurting churches financially, we're going to hear why some pastors say they also mean an opportunity for the gospel. Those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Want to begin this half hour with warnings from Washington of a dark week ahead as the coronavirus death toll keeps climbing in the United States. But President Donald Trump also offering some optimism, saying we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. George Thomas brings us the story.
With more than 1,200 people dying in just the past 24 hours, the U.S. Surgeon General is warning that the country is entering one of the most critical weeks in the battle against the virus.
The next week is going to be our Pearl Harbor moment. It's going to be our 9/11 moment. It's going to be the hardest moment for many Americans in their entire lives.
Health officials in New York, Louisiana, New Orleans and Detroit expecting infections to peak in the coming days as hospitals in these cities and across the country brace for a surge.
We know that we've got hospitals that are already at capacity. We don't have enough personal protection equipment.
Still, at his Sunday press briefing, the president expressing optimism, saying there's a leveling off of cases in places like New York, the epicenter of the viral outbreak.
Things are happening. We're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be very proud of the job we all did.
The president's medical experts saying that even as new cases might be leveling off, deaths will reach new highs.
It seems to be inherently contradictory, but it really isn't. What you're hearing about potential light at the end of the tunnel doesn't take away from the fact that tomorrow, the next day, it's going to look really bad.
While stay-at-home measures seem to be working, they're taking an economic toll. A new report from the Wall Street Journal says that at least 25% of the nation's economy is at a standstill. The oil industry hit hard as prices plummeted 66%, near $20 a barrel. On Capitol Hill, talk of a possible phase 4 of a coronavirus economic stimulus aimed at helping states.
This weekend, lawmakers are working on the next round of relief packages. What was not in the stimulus package that you signed last week that you would like to see in phase 4?
Well, I think we're going to need more money for the small businesses. It's been working out so well. I think that restaurants and entertainment, that would include sports leagues, all forms of entertainment, go back to the original, where they get tax deductibility for what they're doing. And
overseas, England's Prime Minister Boris Johnson leading his country from hospital after being admitted over the weekend with persistent symptoms of the virus 10 days after getting infected. On Sunday, in only the 5th of its kind, Britain's Queen Elizabeth II making a rare speech from Windsor Castle, urging the country and world to remain united and resolute against the virus.
We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.
Some good news, though. Europe's hardest hit countries like Italy, France, and Spain showing signs of progress as new cases and fatalities continue to slowly drop. George Thomas, CBN News.
And medical reporter Lori Johnson joins us now with more on our continuing coverage. So we've got people wearing masks now. What do you do if you don't have one?
Right. They're very hard to find. And of course, we have been told not to buy the N95s as if you could. They're not really available for sale because the healthcare workers need those. And really, the healthcare workers need those surgical masks, the flat ones as well. And so we're being asked to wear cloth face coverings out in public. Last week we talked about really one of the easiest things to do is if you just have a piece of cloth at home, like this bandana, you just take a square piece and then fold it into a triangle and then just tie it behind your face.
Right.
That's fine. This is a little bit more comfortable and a little bit better. This is something that the Surgeon General describes on his YouTube page, how to make it out of a t-shirt. This is the t-shirt that I used. You can see it's kind of big, and you can make a lot of face masks out of this particular size of t-shirt. This square I cut, it's only about 14 by 14. And what you do is you just fold it from the top down to the middle, and then from the bottom up to the middle, then do it again, top down to the middle, bottom up to the middle, and then you take 2 rubber bands, and you can even use hair ties, ladies, and bring it in on each side, and then takes only a minute, and then you fold in the sides and take the rubber bands and put them behind your ears.
Right.
So there you have a nice mask. And what's great about this mask, which they say you should do, is it's very layered. It's like 5 or 6 layers thick.
Gotcha.
You want to make sure to wash these in hot water and make sure to not use them backwards when you're wearing them out.
Gotcha.
Also, when we talked about the N95 masks, those are the really great ones. Of course, we need them for healthcare workers, but guess what, Ephraim? You can make N95 masks out of, you may not know what this is, it is a bra, okay? And so it's a little bit more complicated, but it really works well because the N95 masks are extremely protective and has a little piece of metal of your, so there are instructions on YouTube on how to make an N95 mask out of a bra, and I'm going to try it at home and come back and show you how to do it because the N95s really are a step above the cloth masks.
Absolutely. Now, if people are wearing masks, then the question is, do we still have to observe social distancing?
Well, that's the big concern about this is when people are wearing masks, they get a false sense of security.
Absolutely.
And so the White House Coronavirus Task Force said, definitely, absolutely, when you're wearing a mask, still practice the social distancing, the social isolation you would if you were not wearing a mask. And remember, with these cloth masks, you're really protecting other people from you. These really don't necessarily protect you from getting germs from other people.
Absolutely. Really quick, we've talked about soap and water and being effective for washing your hands, but is liquid soap the same or as effective as bar soap?
Liquid soap is fine to use. We just have to make sure not to use it like hand sanitizer, which some people do. You have to make sure to get it with the water and lather up for 20 seconds. That's really important for it to be effective. Doctors say the best way, besides the social distancing, the social isolating, to prevent getting it is from washing your hands and then from not touching your face. Those 2 things.
All right, Lori Johnson, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Now here's a quick look at some other coronavirus stories in the headlines today. The Navy captain who was relieved of his command from the nuclear aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt has himself now tested positive for the coronavirus. Captain Brett Crozier was removed for his handling of the situation after dozens of crew members tested positive. Likely Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden said Sunday Democratic National Convention may have to take place online, telling ABC's This Week it may not be possible to put up to 30,000 people in one place. And Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, on Friday called for a national day of prayer and fasting. Reuters reporting he called for it to take place yesterday, Palm Sunday, to free Brazil from the coronavirus pandemic. As coronavirus prevention measures now stretch through April, some officials are cracking down harder to enforce restrictions. Even so, a few churches across the country are still meeting on Sundays. Government actions have led to questions of whether these lockdowns could endanger Americans' religious freedom, and sometimes they've led to confrontations with the authorities. Paul Strand brings us the story now.
The most recent incident involves the arrest of well-known megachurch pastor Rodney Howard Brown for holding a service at his Tampa church. Liberty Counsel's top lawyer is representing Brown and says the pastor's church went way out of its way to make the service safe.
At this church, required a 6-foot distance, required sanitizing, required the wearing of gloves, and also purchased over $100,000 of special high-grade air purification systems.
In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio has threatened to permanently shut down churches or synagogues that continue to hold services. And President Trump is warning congregations against congregating.
Well, my biggest disappointment is that churches can't meet in a time of need. And yet, if you do that, if you do it close, you're really giving this invisible enemy a very big advantage.
Religious rights reporter Todd Starnes told CBN NewsWatch about a frightening police presence outside an Illinois church.
The local sheriff's department showed up and they were actually counting cars in the parking lot, and they were photographing license plates of people. We had a report from Louisiana where they were told that if they did not shut down their services, the National Guard would come in.
Staver says authorities need to guard religious liberty as well as people's health.
This is a major constitutional issue that we have to balance with a scalpel, not a chainsaw, when it comes to protecting public health and safety. There's a way to do both without sacrificing either.
Constitutional attorney John Whitehead is appalled at hearing reports of authorities grabbing guns and arresting people just for walking around outside.
That undermines everything the Founding Fathers gave us, which was our liberties. And what it means is you don't have absolute rights if the government can just take them away.
But the Heritage Foundation's Cully Stimson says governors are well within their constitutional rights if it involves going after people whose behavior could threaten the public's health.
And I think it's those people that the governors are rightfully targeting, and the police will rightfully warn, and then sternly warn, and then give a fine to, and if ultimately necessary, jail.
The Southern Baptist Convention's Russell Moore defends the authorities, writing, "Nowhere at this point have we seen churches targeted because of their beliefs or mission." In fact, he points out this is an area, the protection of public health, where the state has not just a legal authority, but an authority granted by God himself. Moore concludes, concern for public health is not a violation of religious liberty. Other states, though, are deciding not to use the force of law on churches, like Ohio.
Well, I didn't think it was proper, really, for government to infringe upon people's First Amendment rights.
Instead, Governor DeWine has only advised religious leaders.
Say, look, you're not doing your folks any favors by bringing them together.
Church members certainly aren't exempt from COVID-19. Early last month, an Arkansas church held a children's program, and afterwards, 3 visitors and 31 church members tested positive for the virus, the church's pastor among them. He later wrote the congregation, "The intensity of this virus has been underestimated by so many, and I continue to ask that each of you take it very seriously." As for Pastor Rodney Howard Brown, he announced on Twitter,
all River members, if you can get the word out and just say no church on Sunday, Pastor said he is protecting his flock, not from the virus, but from tyrannical government.
Paul Strand, CBN News.
And be sure to stay with us for the latest on the coronavirus as we provide continuous updates on the CBN News Channel and at cbnnews.com. Coming up, evangelist Franklin Graham's relief organization went to New York to help victims of the coronavirus there, but instead they ran into a controversy. We're going to tell you about the reception they got right after this. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Samaritan's Purse is in New York helping victims of the coronavirus with a field hospital. However, they didn't exactly get the reception they expected from some city leaders. Our Mark Martin has the story with Faithwire's Dan Andros.
Dan, tell us about this story on Faithwire.com about the New York City mayor actually sending staff to monitor Samaritan's Purse and its tent hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those stories that seems like it can't be real, but it is. And after Samaritan's Purse, of course, did the amazing thing of generating a field hospital and putting it in New York City and bringing it into the hot zone, because the number one problem right now facing cities like New York, who are big hotspots for the coronavirus, is the potential for the hospitals to be overrun and overflowed. So Samaritan's Purse is filling that need, at least to the extent that they can, with about a 60 or so bed hospital right out there in Central Park. And so this is an amazing thing that Samaritan's Purse is doing. And the mayor, though, and a couple other city council members reacted by saying they were very concerned about an anti-LGBT group, as they said, being in the city. So they decided to send monitors to, quote, make sure everyone was treated equally.
Wow, it's hard to wrap your mind around that. So the organization is basically facing bias for its stand for biblical beliefs on things like marriage, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, because as I just mentioned, they did say the anti-LGBT stuff. That's what they've cited, and it's really fascinating to me that somebody could make the leap from a view that's a traditional Christian view, traditional marriage, and Franklin Graham has been outspoken on that issue. But it's very interesting to me that they would view that as in somehow that's going to translate into Samaritan's Purse, harming people or not treating them or turning them away. This is an organization that is a massive organization that has worked all around the globe for decades. And I know of no instance, that's not even one, that's been reported where someone was turned away because of who they were, their sexuality, their gender, their nationality. None of that has ever happened. So there's really no basis for it whatsoever. So that's why it was particularly stunning for me to see this claim.
What has been the ministry's response, Dan?
Well, you know what? Franklin Graham responded very graciously, I would say. And he said, look, we're going to treat everyone equally, no matter who they are, no matter their sexuality, no matter where they're from, their gender, etc. And so I say he was gracious because I don't think that, honestly, that move by the mayor, I don't even think warranted a response. But Franklin Graham was gracious and let them know that how Samaritan's Purse actually operates.
All right, Dan Andros with Faithwire.com. Thanks for bringing us this important story.
Thank you.
And there's lots more ahead tonight on Faithwire, including what happened when a trooper pulled over a doctor for speeding. We're going to tell you why what happened next was a great act of kindness. That's on Faith versus Culture with Dan Andros. It airs tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, with congregations watching services from home, churches have taken a financial hit, but many also see the current situation as an opportunity for the gospel. We're going to explain why when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Efrem Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Churches across the country have quickly adapted to social distancing. They're also taking a financial hit as congregations watch from home. As Heather Sells reports, many also see the COVID-19 outbreak as opening doors for the gospel.
We know that we can't gather, at least at this time, physically upon our campus, but we can gather in spirit and truth.
In just a matter of weeks, online services have become the new normal. The Barna Group just surveyed 400 pastors and found 90% offering some digital option for their congregation.
The Lord is at hand.
It could be a sermon, worship service, or daily devotional. And while many church buildings stand empty, more than half of the pastors surveyed report small groups meeting online. Those gatherings are working for now, but for many churches, finances are a concern.
A good portion of our weekly offerings is given on the weekend when we gather together.
A majority of pastors say giving is down, with 1 in 5 cutting staff hours and compensation. This is another area where the digital option can be a lifeline.
Churches that have online giving as a regular practice or a significant portion of their congregation engaging in that, they're going to experience a bit of a decline immediately, but they'll be able to bounce back. Churches that are in areas of the country where that isn't as available, they're going to have some pretty significant challenges.
Pastors say they're communicating a message of faith and hope, which many believe people want and need to hear.
We're at a point in our country where people are asking pretty serious questions about meaning in life and where do you find hope in the midst of anxiety? These are questions that open up the door for the gospel.
God may be using this to revive his church and to call his church back to him and to perhaps begin the next great awakening.
And this might surprise you. Barna found more than half of the pastors reporting a higher online attendance than when they last met in person. The next challenge will likely be one of preparation, as the government expects we will see many more COVID cases and deaths in the weeks ahead. Wheaton College's Ed Stetzer says now is the time to plan.
We just interviewed with some pastors in Italy and Spain, and they're saying, you guys have got to get ready. And I think that's where we need to be right now.
Another milestone service to consider is what will likely become the first digital Easter. Close to half of all pastors say they will live stream an online service. Others say they'll record or go outdoors, such as this drive-in service in Chesapeake, Virginia.
No matter how they celebrate, churches will be reaching communities that are desperate for hope and that may be listening with fresh ears. Reporting in Chesapeake, Virginia, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Coming up, since most churches will not be meeting for Easter this Sunday, pastor and author Rick Warren and his wife Kay will be hosting an online global Easter prayer event today. We're going to tell you about that right after this.
I got the
the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back. The coronavirus outbreak means churches around the world will not be able to celebrate Easter as usual this year. So Pastor Rick Warren of Saddleback Church in California and his wife Kay are hosting an international online Easter prayer gathering today. They'll be joined by respected church leaders from around the world. Warren says regardless of these unprecedented circumstances, the message of Easter remains the same. Jesus is the hope of the world. Together, we will pray for our churches, our communities, and the world as we unite as the body of Christ to proclaim the hope of the resurrection at Easter. The 90-minute event will be held at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and CBN is making it available across all our apps and streaming platforms, including YouTube and Facebook. You can also watch it on the CBN News Channel. Time now for your Monday motivation, and today I leave you with this thought. We are all on a journey. Be careful not to be so fixed on the destination you miss the beauty along the road. With that word, I encourage you to make today a marvelous Monday. You have everything you need to do just that. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. Feel free to email us. The address right there on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Again, please make today a marvelous Monday. We'll see you right back here same time tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.